So it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I have been up since about 3 doing some private eye work that I do on the side. It's really, I don't get really paid for it, but it's worth it because I found out what I wanted to find out. So anyway, I just wanted to do a life after SIDS vlog today. Excuse me, I've already had like way too much Diet Coke this morning. So, here we are. It's April 21st, 2015. It's 5 years since our little girl, my little girl Tess Alexandra, passed away from SIDS. She was 2.5 months old. And I thought I would tell the story of what happened the morning that she passed away. So, the night before, the day before, I remember going and visiting a friend from church. She's in a different ward, and I don't really talk to her that much anymore, but I remember going over to her house. At some point, Scarlett had Ready for Learning or pre-K, but it was in the afternoon. So I think she must have been at Ready for Learning, and me and Tessie we went over to this girl's house, and we visited her and her little girls. And she was good that day, I believe. During the day she was. But we got home and she just was fussy. She was probably the fussiest baby that I have had, that I will have. Because I won't have any more babies. But anyway, she was the fussiest baby that I'd ever had. She only wanted me to hold her. Babies do prefer their mothers probably. But mine never really, when they were that little, when they were only 10 weeks old, they didn't really prefer, whether me or Brian were holding them, as long as someone was holding them, unless, they got hungry, they wanted to nurse or breastfeed or whatever. But she only preferred me, like me and Brian. Like, Brian would act butthurt, kind of like, or we would joke about it, because she's like, she hates my guts. Like, she would not, it was, I don't know. She was a very deep kind of a baby. So, but we got home that night, and the girls, Avery was in, I believe she was 8. She had just gotten baptized the month before, and I was really pregnant. Excuse me. She had just got baptized in January. She just got baptized in January. And Tess was born in February, so just a couple weeks before Tess was born. So she'd gotten baptized a couple months before, 2-3 months before. So she was 8, so that would make her in what grade? She's in 7th now, so she was in 2nd grade? Yeah, 2nd grade. Okay, so Avery and Scarlett, we're just doing our thing that night and waiting for Brian worked days that day. We were waiting for him to get home, and she was just fussy. She was just fussy, fussy, kind of fussy. Not terribly fussy, because when Brian got home at like 8:20, it was unlike me to ask him to just like take a bunch of pictures of us. But for some reason, I asked him. I said, "Will you take some pictures of me and Tess?" And so he did. And she was pretty. She didn't cry. She was pretty. She was pretty mellow about it. She was pretty, she just seemed like she was in an okay mood. But as Brian went to bed and the girls went to bed, Scarlett and Avery, she just started getting fussier and fussier. And you know how babies just, they get to the point, because it got into late into the night, where they get to the point where they just can't, like, settle. You can't. I rocked her, and I tried to nurse her a million times. I stood up with her, put her in her swing, put her in her bouncy, But I've never been the type of mother that could let their babies cry out. I just can't do it. It like breaks my heart. Like, I want to die. Like, if they're crying it out like that, then I'm in the next room crying too. Like, I can't do it. So anyway, it was getting into the night, and I was just sleep deprived. Like, I had to get up with, a 7-year-old and get her off to school, and, or an 8-year-old, and my 5-year-old got up when she did, and then, I'm getting Tess still nursed But she did sleep. She was starting to sleep like 5 or 6 hours at a time. So, anyway, so it came, and Brian had to get up at work at 5 o'clock. And at 2 a.m., I don't know why I went in there to wake him up, because usually he would have cussed a sister out, let me tell you. Maybe not literally at that time, but I mean, he would have been very irate. Like, I have to get up at 5. Like, why are you coming and waking me up with the baby troubles? Like, that's your job, you know what I mean? And it was my job, but I just went in there and I was just kind of weepy, and I was like, I can't take it. Like, I can't get her to calm down, and sometimes babies just kind of need to cry it out. They need to, like, lay down, or you need to put them down in their crib or in their bassinet or wherever, in the bed, and let them cry it out. And so he was really kind to me that night. Like, he said, just lay her beside me, because we never exclusively co-slept. I had a co-sleeper that was, attached to my bed. So, like, whenever I would bring her in the bed and I would nurse, and sometimes I would, fall asleep or whatever, when I was, like, dead tired of the world, I might, like, fall asleep with the breast milk all over the sheets and wake up and, she's snuggled up beside me. But we never really exclusively co-slept. And when we did, I always made sure that either I wasn't in the bed or he wasn't in the bed. She never slept in between us ever. So she had her own part of the bed. We have a queen size bed. I laid her down in the bed. There were no covers under her, no covers over her. There was no pillows around her. Not that I have to explain this to anybody, but anyway. I took the precautions that I thought I should have taken, even though SIDS was not on my radar. It just wasn't, I never put my babies on their stomach. I didn't put blankets in her co-sleeper. She was swaddled at times, but she didn't even really like that. So I wasn't swaddling her very much at that time. Maybe a little bit, she just wanted to be held and to be on my boob constantly. But Brian said, just let her, because he just has more, I guess, self-discipline than me. He said, lay her beside me, and she'll cry for 30, she'll cry for a minute, Jordan, and then she'll be out, I promise, because I didn't even want to do that. I felt guilty. But, I put her down by him, and I went out of the room, and, I went and got in the bottom bunk with my little girl, Scarlett. Or Avery, I can't remember which one. And because we only were in a 2-bedroom, I think, at that time. We were in an apartment. And so I went and got in bed in this twin bed to see if I could catch some Z's, because I was so tired. So anyway, I got into bed at about 2:30, and then Brian came and woke me up at 5, and all I remember about that, because I was so tired, was that, he woke me up so that I could come back in the bedroom with Tess and get to bed with her. He woke me up and said, all that I remember between the exchange was, how long did she cry? And he goes, maybe for like a minute, and she was asleep. So I laid down beside her at 5, and I've been asked this by asinine people, why didn't you check on her? Why didn't you turn the lights on? Because, I didn't know that you were supposed to disturb a sleeping baby. Like, why would I think that there was anything wrong because she was asleep? You know what I'm saying? Like, and when I got in bed beside her, she was on her own side of the bed. And so I didn't feel anything next to me. I just, I kind of, creeped in bed beside her really, really softly. And I just, she was asleep. So at 7 o'clock, I woke up, and I looked at her, and I knew immediately that something was wrong. And the manager of the apartments at the time, who's a really good friend of mine now, and was a friend then, actually, she was made to be a friend, I guess, said she heard me scream. I don't even remember that. She heard me scream across the way. She lived kind of not next door to us, but there was a sidewalk, and she lived in the next building over. She heard me scream. But immediately when I looked at her, I knew that she was dead. She looked gray, and she was cold, and she just was dead. So I immediately I grabbed her, and I ran out of the house. I don't know if I did that because I didn't want the girls to, I don't know why I did it. I don't know. I think I did it because I was like so terrified and I wasn't thinking straight. And, so instead of calling 911, I just ran with my dead baby. So imagine that. I have my baby, my dead baby, and I'm running around this apartment complex, like banging on people's doors, trying to get somebody to help me. And so I banged on like 2 or 3 doors, and then I got to my friend Amy's house, and I banged on her door, and her husband came to the door, and I brought my nightmare into their house, and they called 911, and they didn't even try to resuscitate her because she had been dead for, the coroner couldn't pinpoint it, but, she'd been dead for an hour or two. We aren't even sure if she died, when Brian was in the bed with her at 5 or right before that, or if she died when I was in the bed with her. So she'd been dead for a couple of hours. But yeah, I don't know if you can imagine somebody running around in April, which still it's pretty cold in April, with holding their dead baby. I mean, that's just how disgusting SIDS is. Anyway, I was holding my dead baby, running around, beating on people's doors. And I guess I did it because I just didn't know what to do. I wanted someone to help me. Like, you still, as a parent, you have, I don't know, I guess I had some kind of hope that somebody could fix this. Like, I wasn't really thinking clearly, I knew that something was wrong, and I knew that she was dead, or I thought she was, but I didn't know what had happened, and I just wanted someone to help me. Like, where are the adults here? Like, what's going on? So, they immediately, called, and they were so very kind. My mother was at work at the cancer center, and I guess someone called her, and she was there within minutes from the hospital, and she walked in, and I just remember being on the floor with her, with my baby. And then my dad came. He just got off the night shift, so someone called him, and he was there very quickly. And my daddy was the one that the police asked, or I guess, because the police got there too. And my daddy was the one, sorry, my arm itches, was the one that they got to call Brian out at work, because Brian had left for one of the mines at 5. And so, they called Brian's supervisor at work, and they wanted him to bring him into the office. They didn't want him, someone to call him and tell him while he was in this big, huge truck or on a piece of machinery. But they called him into the office, his supervisor did, and he said, your father-in-law has something to tell you. And so Brian said, when my daddy called, he said, I have some really bad news. And Brian said he immediately thought it was me, that I died. But he said, no, Tess died this morning, and so you need to come back into town. And so I guess his supervisor drove him back into town, and Brian said, like, the dude didn't say one word the entire time. It was so awkward. But they wouldn't let me, the police would not let me talk to him. They wouldn't let me call his cell phone. They wouldn't let me talk to him when he got back to the house. Not for a good long while. Not back to our apartment. Wouldn't let me talk to him. They quarantined off our bedroom, took all of our bedding, the sheets, the baby's blankets, everything, our pillows, and made I can't remember if they had tape up, but treat it like a crime scene. And I guess they were nice, maybe. I can't remember, really. But obviously they wanted to interview us both before they thought we would get, before they would, they just didn't want us to, I guess, in like this scary world where people kill their babies, get their story straight, but whatever. So, I don't really remember a lot of the rest of the day. I don't even remember what Brian and I said to each other. Honestly, I don't remember anything about that day. The rest of the day. I remember sitting in my recliner. The recliner that I don't even know where we have. I guess Brian put it in storage, but I still have it because I spent so much time in this ugly green recliner with all my babies. But I don't remember a lot about that day. I don't remember anything that me and Brian said to each other. And a bunch of people I know came over. My parents were there, and they came and got my kids. Brian and Scarlett went and picked up Avery at Paintbrush. And the funny thing is, it's not funny, but they said that Scarlett just blurted out, like, they got, I guess the teacher or the office called Avery down, and Scarlett and Avery were, or Scarlett and the daddy, Brian, were waiting for in the foyer, and Scarlett just screamed out, "Tess is dead!" Because she was 5 and she did not get it. Like it was like, we were going to Disneyland, and Avery said she'll always remember that, but I don't remember anything about that day. The only thing that I do remember is that me and Brian, someone had given us some sleeping pills. And we didn't want to go back into our bedroom that night. And so we both took one because we knew we weren't going to be able to sleep. But we were so tired. We just wanted to go to sleep so we could escape the nightmare. And I just remembered that we both got in the bottom bunk of the girls' bunk beds. And we just held each other and cried until we fell asleep. And then we woke up the next morning and it wasn't a dream. And the next day, actually the first day, I became really engorged because, I'd been nursing her, and I don't know if I prayed, but somebody must have been praying because it was one of the worst, the loneliest feeling to have that milk still coming in and not have a baby to nurse. It just was terrible. But my milk dried up in like a day. Like, it was a miracle. Like, the Lord bless me. Somebody was praying for that because that was one of the things that like put me over the edge. But anyway, so that's the story. I don't know. It's been 5 years, and she'd be going to kindergarten this next fall. Everybody here has already registered their kids for kindergarten. And the day they did that, it was hard on me. So I know that whenever Avery starts 8th grade this next year and Scarlett starts 5th, Tess should have started kindergarten. And I know it's going to be really hard on me. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her or Jones. And actually, I talk about him every day with my children. Brian isn't around a lot, but really he's had a hard time talking about it. But I talk about him almost every day with my kids, not even in a sad way. It's just like we incorporate them into our lives. It's like they're part of our lives. Like, me and the girls will say, "Oh my gosh, look at that. Tessie probably would love that. She probably would have loved Frozen," or, the song "Let It Go," like all little 5-year-olds love, or she would have been such a diva and like, been girly like her sisters. And we know for sure she would have looked like Avery. She had really dark hair, and maybe it would have been curly like Avery's was. And or Sailor will even say, me and Jones, like, we were Power Rangers together. And, he plays out these little scenarios and tells me all about these little made up stories that he, just his imagination. He has a really good imagination. And Jones a lot are in these stories. He'll tell me what Jones's name was. Jones's, his name is whatever. I forget what the Power Rangers name was, but he'll be like, Jones was the blue one and I was the green one, and we we killed these bad guys. And he's all about the superheroes, and I'm not really too fond about the kill stuff that he says. But anyway, so I don't know, we just talk about him every day, and I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy for my kids to talk about it, and to know that, like, it's not shameful to have 2 siblings that are in heaven. It's not shameful to have lost a sibling, to a brother or sister. They're special. They're special to have had 2 angels in their home. It makes them special, not social prize, and not outcast. And we'll always talk about them. tomorrow we're going to do a balloon release for her, and we're going to release some blue balloons for Jones because I wasn't in town whenever he had his, his second anniversary pass, which was 3 weeks ago. So we're going to do a balloon release down at the Children's Memorial Walkway, and I'll tape it so y'all can see it, maybe with my phone. And I don't know, I feel better this year. I'm sad, but as time goes by, it gets easier, I think. It gets easier. I've been getting help for 5 years, though, and my poor husband hasn't. And I ask that all of you that are watching this to please pray for him. To pray for him to be willing to get the help that he needs so that he can find some sort of happiness in his life, whether it be with me or whether, it not be with me. I just want him to be happy, or to have some sort of peace, and to be progressing in his healing and in his grief like I am. Because I love him, he'll always be a part of my life. He is my person. He has been for a long, long time. We're not maybe in love with each other. We've been through a lot. We weathered that first loss, and we we were in love again after Jones was born. Brian said to me, we took Jones to get a CT scan, as most of you know, 2 days before he died, and we had to go to Rapid City, which is about 100 miles away from Gillette here, because they had to put him under anesthesia to do that, and he was so little they don't do that here in Gillette. So we went to Rapid and stayed for went the night before, because Jones had to be there really early, and he had to fast for several hours, which freaked me out. But he was such a champ. He was such a good baby. Just thinking about that makes me so proud of him. He was such a trooper. He was such a sweet baby. But me and Brian, we were, after we did that, we shopped and we spent 2 days, just me and him and Jones, which I won't just cherish forever. But he looked at me. We were at a restaurant. I can't remember where we were. And he looked at me and he said, I feel really happy for the first time in a long time, and I think we're going to make it. I really do. And Brian doesn't say things like that very much. He's not real emotional, and not, it's hard for him to show his emotions. And then 2 mornings later, Jones died in his arms. He woke up, and Jones was dead. He was holding him. And so we've been through it. We were able to weather the first loss. And I don't know if it's going to happen this time. It looks like probably not. But anyway, I just thought that I would tell my story. I don't know. I've told it little bits here and there. And, a lot of people know it already. But it's nothing to be ashamed of. Just part of who I am. And it's what happened that day. And I don't know. I appreciate everybody that has stuck with me for these last 5 years and been on this roller coaster with me and this crazy bipolar trip, as I call it. That's what grief feels like. I think it feels like what I think bipolar might feel to some people, because I don't know, and I'm not presuming to say that I know what it feels like to be, to have bipolar or manic depressive disorder. I don't know. I mean, I think that's terrible for someone to have to struggle with that, but sometimes it feels like that. It feels like that, the highs and the lows are there's such a difference in between them, and they come so hard and fast. I just want to thank those of you that have been with me for 5 years, that have stuck with me, that haven't been scared of my grief, and have listened to me vent and cheer me on and pray for me, and just so many people. I mean, I've felt this for so many. I mean, yeah, it's not like y'all have been behind me for a year or two. It's like there's some of you that have supported and loved me for like half a decade, and I promise you it'll never be forgotten. Never. I'll never forget it. And I know that part of the reason that I am doing as good as I am doing is because of y'all, and the prayers that have been, so many prayers have been said on my behalf and my family's behalf have lifted us up. And I just want to thank you. And just everybody remember Tess today. She was real, and she was the prettiest baby ever. We were so proud to have 3 little girls, and we were so proud to have her. And we still are. She's still our daughter. And we'll be with her again one day. And I'll get to hold her again and get to know her like I didn't while she was here on earth. Not really. So just remember Tess today and hug your kids a little bit tighter. Please do that. Tess Alexandra, named after her 2 grandmothers, who are probably up there right now, loving on her and giving her all the attention that she would ever or could ever need, which I'm thankful for. So y'all have a good day, and I love you guys. Peace.